And we're recording on Zoom.
We're on.
Okay. Are we on the radio as well, Colonel? Okay,
Yes.
James.
All right. Good morning, everyone. And every day we rise is a great day to be alive. And welcome to the Seven Cities Forums of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talks morning show. And I'm here. My name is James Slim Overton, and here with the show's co-host, Leah Drake Stitt and Thomas the Colonel Chapman. Good morning, co-host. How you doing?
Good morning. Good morning, James.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
So a good thing, and we have Jeff here, and we'll get to him in just a minute. Good thing we had a chance to talk a little bit before we came on air, so everyone is awake, have their coffee. But anyway, I'll just mention before Jeff comes on, you know, it was a great football weekend. I always have to bring that up. Starting from IC Norcom, they won their game against Prince William, was it?
Prince William. Mm-hmm.
And Virginia Union beat Elizabeth City 49-0.
Oh my goodness.
Norfolk State in Hampton.
Norfolk State and Hampton played Saturday?
No, I'm just saying
we have not heard anything about their games. Okay.
I had to look them up. I was more in the other stuff. We'll have to get back to you on that detail.
Okay, I'm gonna be checking. And of course, our favorite team, Dallas, won. But anyway, we'll go to our guest now. And he is Jeffrey Holzer, and he is with, let's see, Kimley Horn, a planning and consulting group. And Jeffrey is here as a part of the Reimagine City Park project.
Yes.
And Jeff, you can start off, tell us about your role in this project, and also tell us a little bit about the group, the design group, Kimley Horn.
Yeah, terrific. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name's Jeffrey Holzer. I'm with Kimley Horn Associates. I'm a landscape architect with Kimley Horn. We are a civil engineering, landscape architecture, planning design firm. We have over 100 offices around the country. I'm stationed out of our Northern Virginia and Reston, Virginia. But the closest to you guys is our Virginia Beach office. And we also have a Newport News office who's handling this project of Portsmouth City Park. My role is being a project manager. I'm teamed with one of our project managers out of the Virginia Beach office to handle this project. Our role right now is to understand really what the people are looking for in City Park. This project's been ongoing for a little better than 2 years at this point. Last year, we went through a long process to understand, let's just get ideas out on the table. What are people looking for this park? If you could have a wish list of what could go in this park, what would that be? And we had over 100 participants during that time when we went through that phase. We boiled that down into ideas and started putting form to some things of what could the park be reimagined as based on what the people initially told us. And now we've gone through some more iterative processes of trying to understand what's the best way to use the land, incorporate those ideas by the people. And we have some initial concepts that we've developed. And where we're at this point in the stage is getting more feedback from the public on those concepts of which they feel is hitting those aspects they're looking for in the park, and also something they'll really be excited about that can be into the future of this reimagined park.
And so, Jeff, so what you're saying is now is the time to let your thoughts and your visions be known as a citizen. Don't talk about it after the project goes into effect. Let's talk about it now and share with Jeff and Jeff's team as to how do you imagine Portsmouth City Park being? What are the things you would like to see in the Portsmouth City Park? And so you are giving the citizens a chance to participate, and that is excellent.
Yeah, there's no better time than right now to getting the word out. The best way as of right now for anybody in Portsmouth to give ideas and give their input is on our website. So if you go to reimaginecitypark.com, on that website, you'll have recordings of the presentation, so you can get all the material that's been shared thus far. All the concepts are on there, and 2 interactive maps are on this website where you can click each concept and you can click on the map and you can put bullet points on the map saying, this is a good idea, this is not a good idea, I want to see this, I don't want to see this, and really add as much input as you want. And you can build a conversation from what people have already put on that website. That's the best way to get the information to us, because that's what we're going to be using going forward, really trying to gauge the pulse of the community. And that website will be active until Halloween, October 31st. So there's still about 3 weeks left for people to get the input in.
So you have your conception plans that you all have put together, and people can go on the website and see it. So the citizens' input, I know will have a, how much effect will it have on it? Suppose it changes the whole plan depending on what the citizens say. I guess you're prepared for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're still at a point in the project where things can move around pretty dramatically. We haven't put significant dimensions or hard lines to anything. We're still working in a very diagrammatic, conceptual way. So if people, for example, don't want basketball courts or something, and we have basketball courts shown and they express that to us, we can remove that from the project and think about what that space could be used otherwise. So the input can be very impactful at this point in the project.
And I know you want to share some charts or visuals with us, but I'll ask, and maybe when you share that, you can show, one of the conceptions is doing away with the golf course altogether. And if that happens, what would you use that space for?
Yeah, the golf course right now is a very significant aspect of this project because it takes up so much space of the park. The park is 93 acres in size, and the golf course itself takes up about 56 acres of the park.
Half space.
Yeah, so it's about 2/3 of the park, and this is the biggest park in Portsmouth. And although the golf course is a public course, it's operated by the city. Anybody can go and play the golf course. That doesn't necessarily mean the land is publicly usable. It's not like you could go out into that space and fly a kite or have a picnic or exercise, because that's not really safe for any general user to be standing in the middle of a golf course, particularly if those playing aren't the most skilled golfers. So it could be a hazardous area. So yeah, the golf course is a big aspect. When we got the initial input from folks last year, there were 3 major concepts that kind of elevated themselves immediately. There was what would we do if we kept the golf course, and how would we reimagine what's the space that's left? What would happen if we completely got rid of the golf course and now we gain 56 public land acres for citizens? And then what's kind of like a hybrid version? What if we gave some land back to general public use, and what if some land was still used for a golf component? And we explored those 3 concepts for the better part of a year. And through some analyses of the golf course operation expenses and revenue, the golf course itself is subsidized by the city of Portsmouth, which means the city has to invest money to keep it operating, to keep it at a low cost. And that's about anywhere between $18 to $20 a round that gets played. So for every dollar someone spends on the golf course, $2 is being provided by the city to keep it operating. So that's a burden on the city, because that's significant money year after year, where that could be used elsewhere in the city, elsewhere in the park. And especially when it takes up so much land, there's that opportunity that what if that land becomes something else? Then we don't need to use that money necessarily to keep it operating. And what if that money went elsewhere for other reasons? So those compounding factors have moved us in a direction that is not considering keeping the golf course any longer in the city park. So and there's still a lot of feedback we're getting from people about the pros and cons of that kind of decision. But the two concepts right now that are being portrayed on the website are the removal of the golf course itself and the hybrid version. And the hybrid version, I think we have some creative ideas to still keep golf as a component within the project, not necessarily taking 56 acres to do it though.
You know, and me not being a golfer, you know, I would agree with that. Golfers might think different, but for the size of Portsmouth, we have two other golf courses that fine golf courses that could accommodate, you know, the citizens of Portsmouth. And I was wondering how else could we maximize that part of the land to make it more of a really city park? Because when you go there, you know, the cookouts and things like that, when you go there, it's not a whole lot to do. And you know, being an ex-realtor, land is important. You know, the use of land is very important and how you use it, especially in a city the size of Portsmouth. So,
yeah, I'm a golfer myself. And I love playing golf. Eliminating any kind of golf component is a personal challenge for myself. But in the reality of what golf takes up a lot of real estate, a lot of land, and requires a lot of extensive maintenance when it comes to operations of mowing grass, fertilizers, pesticides, water to keep things green. They're not environmentally conscious activity. And when you compound that with where it is on the river and this fragile environmental system that's on the river, how much land it takes within this park, that's, you know, green space is limited in the city, and all the other kind of components of subsidies that I talked about. It's a significant move to get rid of the golf course that we didn't take lightly by any means, but we think it's a direction that is going to be far beneficial to a larger number of people of the city.
So if you move to the hybrid mode, how would that be seen there at the city park? If we go hybrid, does it mean?
So the hybrid concept, and if you don't mind, I'll actually pull up the concepts now.
Okay.
And I'll start with the hybrid idea. Let me share my screen here. You all can see my screen now? So if you're familiar with the park, in about the center of the park, just on the south side of the ponds that are in the center of the park, is where the current driving range is located for the golf course. It's a 9-hole golf course with a driving range. The hybrid concept retains the driving range where you'd be able to still go and hit a bucket of balls and practice your swing and your game a little bit. There's ideas of expanding the significance of that driving range, whether or not we want to build a structure to make it a double tier hitting bay to allow for more people to hit there. Even an idea about lighting the driving range so that then into the evenings, the later evenings, you could still go and hit golf balls there as well. But the main creative idea that we think can be really unique and really a wow factor for the city of Portsmouth is something that you don't see often, period, and let alone in the United States, is an idea that within the driving range itself, you could build a small 9-hole pitch and putt golf course. So you could have an operating driving range facility, let's say Monday through Thursday, where people can go and just hit into the open space. But then on, let's say, Friday through Sunday, the area within the driving range would be designed to have individual tee boxes, individual holes, and you could go and play 9 holes. Your holes are going to be at a smaller scale. You're probably going to only have holes between the 70 and 150 yards. But for a game, you know, for a course like that, it's great for an older crowd who want to play the game, but not necessarily able to navigate a full 9 or 18 hole golf course. It's great for the younger generation to start learning the game. Let's get them on a small scale so they can just practice their swing, get used to kind of the etiquette of what's expected for golf. And then also too, it's still just a great course to practice your irons, your wedges, your putting, but is still a means of playing the 9 holes on a site that already has 9 holes. It's just a little smaller scale. It still emphasizes a lot of same practices that the golf course currently does. It's just kind of more compact, a little more unique style. And then we're able to reallocate over 30 acres of land back to the park for just other general public use.
So you would 30 acres would come back. You said currently it's on 50 acres. Am I correct?
The golf course is on approximately 56 acres of the 93 acres of the park.
Okay. And so 30 acres would come back for general public use.
Right. Because we'd keep the driving range and that pitch and putt course within the limits of the current driving range area. And then all the other space that was previously the 9 holes, that could be reallocated to other uses.
So for us non-golfers, this pitch and putt, what exactly is that, please, Jeff?
So pitching and putting are 2 terms in golf. Putting is what you do when you hit the ball, when you're on the green, when you're as close to the cup as you can to try to get the ball in the cup. And pitching is a term used when you're approaching the green and you're likely within 150, maybe 100 yards. You'd use the term pitch. So it's pitch and putt is the idea of that the course is designed to be smaller, so you're only needing to hit the ball short distances using smaller clubs to hit the ball to get it towards the green in the hole. It's great for just general practice for an average golfer for honing your skills at your irons and wedges and putting. And like I said, for the elderly or the younger generation learning the game, it's great too, because it's such a small scale. It's just easy to navigate the course, but also open and simple simple strokes for the younger generation to learn the game.
That's interesting, Jeff. I got a question. If you went with this
Hybrid.
small course, not 9 holes, what is the usage to make it revenue neutral? Because you mentioned that, and to get rid of the subsidies. And what is the present use of the golf course as far as numbers go?
The current golf course, we had a study conducted between the years of 2015 and 2020. And during that 5-year time span, the average annual revenue of all of the golf facilities, which means cart fees, green fees, buying shoes from the clubhouse, buying a bucket of balls at the driving range, all those components, averaged around $152,000 a year. And the average expenses for the golf course itself was in the average neighborhood of $335,000 a year. And these are details that are explained in some of the information that's shared on the website. If anyone wants to go look at that availability on the website, again, that's reimaginecitypark.com. So again, that's where we're coming back to that subsidy component, where about $2 per the city for $1 of a user. And to make it neutral, it'd be twofold. One, there's got to be a means of the revenue source where there's got to be something that people want to come play. A unique idea like a pitch and putt course is not often seen in the world, let alone the United States. So this is a really unique opportunity to utilize a different means to play golf that could still be played as green, so you could still earn green fees and revenue fees, green fees and buying shoes and those components, but still have a driving range component where you can earn those revenues. The significance is on the other side, where the operating costs.
Yeah.
Now we're not managing a golf course that's 56 acres. We're managing something that's 20 acres. And depending on how we design the golf course itself, if we use xeriscape means of low water, low grass, a more native plant material, and be really strategic about how we want to design for our greens and for our tee boxes, even considering synthetic turf, could be a means to lower all the operating costs. If we have all those xeriscape and native species and or even synthetic turf if that's a route that we pursue. And that's something far down the line if we're not talking necessarily materials at this point of the project. But eliminating those means of needing to do heavy maintenance, having water, needing water to keep things looking green, taking care of mowing the grass, all if we can start reducing some of that stuff and bring the expenses down closer to what the potential of the revenue can be, that's how we're going to get to a net zero where we wouldn't require a subsidy from the city.
Right, right, right. Gary Harris writes, effective land use is about maximizing the allocation benefits to residents. Benefits exceed costs, economic, social, and environmental. He said hybrid is the better model to go with. So once again, this is a time when citizens can have their input and let the company know, Kimley Horn know, what do you want to see in the Portsmouth City Park? Share your vision with him. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Thank you for the input. The hybrid model has a lot of benefits. It is what we feel is a great compromise between a lot of different programs and a lot of different things the city, or I'm sorry, the public has already mentioned that they want to see in the park. So it's a great option. But I think equally the no golf course concept is an equal concept as well, because I think that one, because we're able to reallocate so much of the land, all 56 acres, back to public use, we can pursue options more focused kind of in the environmental aspect. We can build a better tree canopy in this open space to help support some climate action that the city has already been working towards. A huge component that is really important with people that we've understood from the beginning is that they want an extensive trail network through this park. So getting rid of the golf course, we can add over 5 miles worth of trails within the park space. Other components like demonstration gardens or pollinator gardens or bird watching stations are all components that can be mixed very easily into the no golf course concept. Those sort of things can be added as well to the to the hybrid concept, but they go really well with the no golf course concept. So again, this is a great time to really get the feedback from people of what they want to see, because if they feel the hybrid concept is the better kind of organizational guide to put things into the park, but they really want to see a lot of those environmental things from the no golf course concept, we can start kind of blurring those lines to really end up with one concept in the future that's going to guide us for the next 30 years.
And Jeff, with there being
let
2
me
other
ask a
golf
question.
courses here in the city of Portsmouth, do you find that you're getting a lot of feedback from individuals who play golf who do not want the golf course to go away? My thought is, with 2 other courses in the city, it would be beneficial for the city not to have the golf course at all, not even the hybrid model.
Yeah, we have been receiving feedback from the public. There has been a crowd of people who are in support of keeping the golf course, and I fully understand their opinion and their perspective on that. Like I mentioned, we carried the golf course concept for over a year and did not take the decision to move away from that concept very lightly. So we are getting feedback that they want to keep a golf course in there. They like, that's their course. It's been there for a very long time. The course has been there for over 100 years. And there's a lot of memories and ultimately a lot of people who enjoy playing that course. But when this is a project and this is a park that supports the greater public of Portsmouth, and there are other golf courses in the area, not only in Portsmouth, but just in the general area. And when you compound all those other factors I mentioned earlier in our conversation about why the golf course is a challenge to continue to operate, there's a lot of support still yet for moving in the direction of one of these other two.
Jeffrey, I'd like to step in. We have about 5 minutes before we switch from the radio to Facebook Live.
Sure.
So I want to take the time now to thank all the listeners on WGPL 1350 AM for watching, for listening, and make sure you tune in next Monday morning. I just wanted to ask this question. I wanted to sort of move us on to, not all parks have the benefit of water access like Portsmouth City Park has. And even with the pier and the boat ramp advantages we have there, and the access to the Elizabeth River. What are the improvements, or if any, that you all are suggesting as far as our water access and refining and making sure that that is well maintained, for one thing? Because I think in one of the reports they were talking about, it was concern about I don't know the words for, but the water kind of overtaking the land. What's the term for that?
It's just kind of a ramification of some of the sea level rise that can occur.
Right. So what is anything in the plans for improvement of those areas, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of components we're still considering for both of these concepts. Addressing some of the issues on the waterfront and the waterfront itself are very comparable between the two concepts, and that's something we've stuck with throughout this process that we're going to continue with. So anybody who kind of feels like they need to vote for one or the other, rest assured, like, the shoreline improvements are going to be consistent across each concept. But what we're doing is, let's start with thinking about the boat ramp. The boat ramp currently has issues of being eroded away because it deals with tidal impact coming in from the river. So, and that damages the boat ramp or requires more maintenance. And when maintenance and operation expenses is an important consideration for this project, we're looking at is there a way to change the orientation? Should we consider moving the boat ramp west into the water so that the land itself can be a barrier to avoid that tidal impact? There's some pros and cons to that idea, certainly. But if we were to keep it in place and refurbish it, additional improvements may include breakwaters out in the water to help minimize that tidal velocity coming in and eroding out the boat ramp. So those are some of the considerations. Around the rest of the perimeter, we're dealing with a large variety of different kind of environmental conditions, between some healthy grasses and wetland areas to minimize land on as part of the shoreline in a bulkhead wall as well. The general idea that we're thinking through as we're moving forward with this is trying to blur the lines a little bit between the interior park and the water itself. Try to have some gradual slopes into the water, allow for native species of grasses and trees to be part of that landscape buffer. That will help support the reinforcement of the shoreline itself. Implementation of specific species and areas to build habitat, whether it be for fish or for oyster. We're working with some considerations from the Elizabeth River project team as well, some ideas they want to incorporate into this, as well as ideas of how can people enjoy this component as well. There's a lot of environmental considerations of doing certain things for certain reasons, but it's also great to allow the people to enjoy that as well. So having some of the trailways go through this natural amenities, a sand beach may be a consideration as in one part of the area, as well as a boardwalk that may navigate through some of the taller grasses. So you can be within the wetland itself, have opportunities to observe birds or fish that may be through there, as well as some educational signage will be there for helping teach kids in the future about the water cycle or what a wetland is and things like that.
You know, Jeff, what would be the upfront cost and the long-term cost to the city to do, say, this hybrid program?
So we did some preliminary budget numbers back in March of this year. And if you're familiar with any of the construction industry right now, all construction pricing has been skyrocketing for the better
Mhm.
part of 2 to 3 years at this point. But when we did these initial numbers back in March, the hybrid concept was considered our most expensive concept. Initially, it ranged in between about 20 to $25 million to do the initial ideas that we put down on paper, while the no golf course concept was a little lower, between 17 and 20 million. Those numbers are likely increased because of the nature of our economy right now, of all the prices increasing. But when you think about it in the way of $25 million over a 30-year span, that's less than $1 million worth of improvements, infrastructure improvements over the course of that timeline. When you're dealing with city budgets or any kind of city improvements, $1 million worth of capital improvement projects isn't really that much money per project. So this is something that could be phased over time to make it more manageable for the city to handle. Operation costs is wildly varying. It's not really something we can put a number to right now because we don't really have a solid grasp of what the people want to have in the park. But when we get a better grasp of that, we can start considering things that will cost more maintenance. Trails and dog parks are lower maintenance compared to a splash pad that has a pump room, mechanical room, chemicals all associated with it. So we're trying to be very economical of what the initial cost would be, but the long-term maintenance cost is always in the back from our mind as we're going through this process.
Interesting. What the other thing is, once you come up with the plan and the citizens have a chance to input, so it go back to, in my understanding, go back to city council for them to
So we're going through a couple of iterative processes here. We had the initial concepts developed earlier this summer, or I'm sorry, last summer, where we got the 3 down on paper and kind of gauged it with city staff of how they were feeling, how that would mean going into the future, how would that mean for maintenance. And then we had, over the year, we refined and we tweaked it a little bit to get it down to 2 that we shared with the public back in August of 2022. And we're going through the public process now. That started on August 24th of 22 and will close. The website will close on November 1st. It essentially closes the end of day of October 31st. So we're going through that public process. We'll take that feedback. We're going to refine those 2 concepts some more, and then we're going to repeat the whole cycle. We're going to take it to city staff, get some feedback based on what the public had said. And then we're going to have another public meeting where people can come, see the refined concepts, provide even further input. We'll go through another iterative process of getting public feedback, and they're all steps to getting it weaned down to one concept. At some point in 2023, we'll have that one concept that's going to be reviewed at that point 3 to 4 times by city staff and the public, so that when we have it down to 1, then we'll take it to city council for their approval, for their adoption, and that's going to be then the guardrails for the next 30 years about what can be done in City Park.
Yeah,
Jeff, what has the public response been so far?
So far, the participation on the website has been about 25 individuals. We think we had about 50 individuals at our public meeting in August of 22. And then we had a follow-up virtual meeting that had a low attendance. And we have about 25 participants at this point on the website. So like I said, now's the best time more than ever for people to really participate and get their input in, because we have not had the participation we hoped for, and we're still looking to get that participation that we need to really feel confident with what the public is saying, so we can continue to move this forward and make sure it is what the public is looking for.
You mentioned the public, though, it'd be interesting to see what the city council or the four horsemen got to say, because they've got a history of saying they don't care what the public has to say. They're going to do what they want and what's best for them. And so as you move in that process, don't be disappointed when they just come up with something.
Well, that's a fair comment. But what I can share is that in June of 22, we shared the initial concepts with the council. They liked the general direction that we were moving forward with, and it was a resounding comment from each individual that we need to make sure that this is representative of what the people are saying. And if it's not representative of what the people are saying, then they themselves won't support it. So from the initial input that I've gotten from them is that their first priority is to make sure this includes what the people are saying.
You know, which is truly beneficial. And it looks like Gary Harris is giving you a lot of suggestions at this time. He's speaking about a focus on environmental impacts and outcomes, climate, walking trails, pollinators, tree canopy, living shoreline, watershed protection, all essential. So people, you're out there, just as Gary has given all of his suggestions, it's important for you to give your suggestions as well. What is your vision? How would you like to see City Park? What would you like to see City Park become over the next 30 years? Now's the time for you to definitely get in there and say what you have to say as far as the reconstruction of the whole City Park is concerned. So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again, Gary, for the comments. All those kind of bullets you hit, or is all the above things we're trying to consider. Yes, and we're looking for public input. The window is open until October 31st. Go to reimaginecitypark.com. All the information's on that website, recordings of the presentations if you want to get the full download of information, and then the interactive maps where you can share your thoughts there. That's the best means to make sure your voice is heard.
Is there going to be another forum for those individuals who may not be using computers so that they may have their input as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some flyers that have been shared with civic groups around Portsmouth. You can fill out the same questions that are on the website on that flyer, and you can mail those to the Parks and Recreation Department for the city. And that input as well will be included in our process moving forward. If you don't get a hold of those flyers, just send in thoughts, write a letter, send in thoughts to the city Parks and Rec Department, address it, bring attention that this is for the city park master planning project. We'll make sure those comments get addressed and incorporated as well.
Jeffrey, I don't wonder how the overhaul thing, most parks, I'm not sure most parks close at dusk like Portsmouth City Park does. Would it be any advantage with all the changes? I know it has something to do with safety and not having, safety officials out there to help you out. But would it be any kind of advantage, whatever changes are made, to extend the time that people can enjoy the park, even at night with, extra lighting and things like that? Because sometimes it's kind of discouraging when you're there with an outfit, with a family or something like that. And just when you're starting to have a good time.
You gotta go home.
Absolutely. Though that consideration can absolutely be addressed as part of the operations perspective with the city. And some of these programs may warrant needing the extension of time. Even having the current existing boat ramp in the park. Lots of fishermen leave early in the morning when it's still dark. And want to use that. So it's important to add lighting, add potentially security systems or cameras or something like that to make sure that surveillance is there to bring a sense of safety. If we went and included components like a lit driving range, that would obviously mean there would need to be access to the park later into the day. Other events may be considered as part of the park, whether it be concert venues or food truck events that are oftentimes, into the evening. So those hours of operations can absolutely be considered as we keep moving forward, and can be adopted by the city if they feel they can handle that kind of responsibility and operations.
Jeff, you talked about this being paid for over 30 years. So I figured that would be maybe a municipal bond paying for it. But if you got the okay tomorrow from construction for the first shovel to completion would take you how long to do it? And would it be phased in, or could you do it?
That's the big question of whether or not they would want to phase it or not phase it. If it was like, let's just close the park and do this all at one time, it would likely be at minimum of probably a 2-year construction period, because there's a lot to do. There's a lot of demolition and reconstruction that would need to be performed. So it would be that would be an expensive initial kind of ask, but it would be obviously a shorter time frame. If it was phased in, we did some initial preliminary phasing. We think it would make sense to kind of break it up into at least 4 phases. And if you took each of those phases at 2-year intervals, it could, at least be a 10-year process at that point. If they wanted to do one thing at a time over a long period of time, it could potentially lead to 30 years. Some of those things are still being considered, and that planning goes hand in hand with similar what's going into the park. If they want to build only trails, maybe we're building 1 trail a year, or maybe they want to build all the trails at one time. It kind of just depends on how they want to do that. When it comes to kind of budgeting, what I'll share too is that the city is pursuing and looking into other grants that are available. A lot of these park and recreation amenities have public funding available, whether it be federal, state, or private organizations that want to fund this stuff. There's private organizations that want to build skate parks, and you can win a grant to build a skate park. And the city is exploring every means possible to garner more money to help support this project, so it's not fully funded by the city itself and ultimately the public who's paying for it. So they're exploring any means possible to have some of that money. We went through a process in January through March of this year to identify grants for the city that are available that would be applicable for this project. And we gave them in upwards of 20 grants that are available that ranged anywhere between $50,000 to $5 million. So it's a means of, some of those grants are timing. They need to be applied for when you're getting ready to design the project. And some of these things some of those grants are grants towards construction. Some of those are grants towards the whole project itself. So it's just needing to understand when the best time to look into to kind of capture those grants. But at least we now have a playbook of some grants that are out there that we know that we could try to apply to and secure.
And I'm sure if it's environmentally friendly, the money is more readily available in those instances, especially since we're looking at climate change and ways in which we can help to reduce that carbon footprint. So, which would be tremendous if we look.
Yeah, there's lots of grants out there about shoreline restoration, healthy living. So you can, healthy living is applicable if you're building trails.
Right.
Canopy coverage, other means of pollinators, all sorts of grants available, especially within the state of Virginia, that are available to support those environmental aspects.
But you know what, the problem with that though is because our state government, especially at the head where we have a Confederate leadership up there, they don't believe in environmental and anything environmental anymore. And so as you notice that those grants have slowed down to a trickle. And so you really can't really count on it. That's just, that'll be more mayonnaise on the sandwich if it would ever come down. But I wouldn't look too much towards the state government giving you a grant, because they they could have come down and helped us with our issues with on crime. You know, they came up, gave a speech, the adjutant general, I mean the attorney general, but you haven't seen any help come down from the state. You've seen the governor come out and give his piece, his trying to help out, what's the girl's name, Kagan, and talking about all this historic stuff he's done, but he's living off of the previous governor's work. And he hasn't done a thing other than run around the country and trying to get ready for his part to get the presidency or the vice presidency, be on the ticket. So you have to, voting counts. And so if you want to get these kind of grants, you got to keep folks in office that have like minds that's going to help the citizens and not just big business and whatever to move us on. And so especially when we have a big election coming up in November. You look at it, right now it's projected that the Confederate Party will take over the House. After that, all the money will shut down. And so all your help will be shut down. Those folks out on public assistance, look for less. When it gets cold in the winter, and you're looking for the federal government to help you with all those heating programs, because you sat home, don't look for that help. And so for this program that Jeff, you're talking about, if you're looking for a grant or anything from the federal government, and we already know the state's not going to help it, it's not going to come. And so that's my piece on the politicians' end.
Yeah, going after those grants, they're never a guarantee. They're not a guarantee. Just because we have identified some grants doesn't mean we're just going to get that money by any means. Yeah, and voting is a good point. You know, when you come to your local, state, and federal representation, if you are an individual who's invested in getting more environmental components to your local area, it's important to make sure you're voting through the ranks of something that for someone who aligns to that thinking, so that funding and programs and those sort of things are supported at those levels and can come back and impact your local neighborhood.
Jeffrey, a lot of people like to have weddings at the park or birthday parties or a lot of other, or even meetings. Would it make sense to have some kind of facility out there like you see on the golf courses, the other golf courses we have?
Yeah, so there's two things we can consider with that. In the current building that holds the clubhouse, that building has some restrooms, the clubhouse, and has a small little gathering area. But that building is older and it's past its life cycle. So any kind of new building, substantial building, that would be kind of the feature building of the park. We're considering having some form of small group activity area within that could host maybe small wedding venues, or a local garden club, or some other kind of organization could have some potential meetings there. In our hybrid concept, we identified the southeast corner, and I'll share my screen again so I can show you where I'm talking about. The southeast corner of the park where the current large pavilion rests, you know, we're considering having that be a private event space where we could include a small building there, something that may have or some bathrooms, which would be good there anyway, because that part of the park is just far from the main building and the restrooms. So that building could have some restrooms, maybe some covered seating, maybe a small kitchenette or something. But then that space just south of that building could be a private event space where you could have maybe 100+ wedding venue there. Part of the reservation for something like that could include the friendship garden or the fishing pier. So then you could have some photo opportunities out on the water or around the ponds or the friendship garden. So we're keeping in mind not only we're keeping in mind the different scales of people who come to the park. You know, maybe the individual who's coming to run, what's that experience for them? Small groups, whether it be a venue or a wedding venue or a family reunion or something like that, as well as 1,000 people coming to the park, and how does that work when it comes to parking and traffic and the event itself, if it's a food truck event or something. So there's a lot of different spectrums of user types that we're trying to capture within the process.
And one other thing before we run out of time, there's been complaints from citizens, the entrance to the park. I think one event, they had a night out event there where, you know, all the city was invited to come, but getting in there, I mean, they had to bring people in there, and it's an issue with parking, enough parking. I believe you all have plans for trying to improve that area of coming in the park without disturbing the cemeteries on both sides.
Yeah, that's a big challenge for this park because it's on a peninsula and there's basically, as of right now, only one way in and one way out. And one of the problems with the current entrance is that you have a fairly narrow roadway that can be challenging to get into just with the volume of traffic, especially with if some of that traffic is boater traffic that may have a boat on a trailer that's generally just kind of a wider equipment. That's a narrow road to come in. So what would be ideal is to expand that road entrance. Because we have two parallel roadways going beside each other, one of those roadways including a north-south road as part of the cemetery, and in between there's a row of cypress trees. If we took that kind of width, which is about 65 feet, we can include 2 drive lanes at 14 feet wide that can accommodate boat traffic, have a center median, have walking paths, and have street trees on the sides, all within that within that 65 feet. We can simplify kind of the connections into the cemetery because right now it's kind of erratic of how some of those connections happen. So we can make it wider, make it more grand, make it simplified, simplify the connections into the cemetery. So that can help assist with kind of the volume of people and kind of the entrance in itself. But when you're getting up into a high volume amount of people, you know, there's still a challenge of how to get people out of the park. So maybe in high event situations, there may be opportunities to include an additional exit out where we can include an idea, and this may be just like a wide sidewalk that can be vehicle rated and accessible, but it could at least allow you for another means to get out of the park, at least put you on the roadway within the cemetery and get directed out, maybe have an additional exit out of the cemetery. And in those high volume situations, at least people have another means to get out and help reduce that that bottleneck situation at the main entrance. So those are things we're considering. As we start again refining the program, we'll be able to target more specifically like how much parking will we actually need for these programs, how do we want to bring that additional exit into the park to make sure people can get out safely. Those are all things we're looking into this next phase as we further refine the input from the public.
And Jeff, for those who are just coming on, once again, tell them how they can gain more information and the cutoff date for the citizens' input.
Yeah, so reimaginecitypark.com is the website you want to go to. Everything's on the website you'll need to get the full download for the project. There's video recordings of the presentation where we'll walk you through all the considerations we've been thinking about through this process. It gives you a timeline of where we started and how we got to where we are today. And it will take you a step-by-step through each of these concepts so you get the full idea of what's being considered. On the website too is other resources that you can look into if you want to get even more information of background of why some things were being considered, as well as 2 interactive maps. On each map, you'll see the concept and you'll have the means to select an icon and say, I have an idea or I don't like this idea. And you can put that on the interactive map. You can put it exactly where you mean to put it. You know, if you don't like a splash pad, you can put it right on the splash pad and say, I don't like this. This should be a playground or something. You can input your feedback that way. It's all there with other public input we've gotten, so you can see what other people have already said on the website, and you can agree or disagree with things that are on there. There's a survey to vote on some components of whether you like certain things in the park. It's just, that's the most center spot you can be to get all the information you need. Again, it's reimaginecitypark.com. The website will be active until October 31st to get all the input in. From there, we'll take that input and refine it further for moving into the next phase of the project.
Great. And I just put it on Facebook Live. So
Yeah, that's great. We're really looking to get as much input as we can from the public about this project. So for anyone out there who's listening, please go to the website, please participate, share it with friends and family, as many people as we possibly can to get on this website and get feedback from. That's what we're looking for, so we can make sure that this project moving forward really encompasses what the pulse is of Portsmouth residents.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey Holzer. And as we wind down, our co-hosts will make their final comments, or if they have any other questions of you at this time.
Colonel,
Jeff, great presentation. Loved it, and it's easy to explain, and it was a complex task that you're trying to do. And it has so many X factors. It could go everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of points where it can diverge. My only fear is this present city council hijacking the process, and especially when they've proven, especially 4 of them, to say the alleged the corruption that they have there. So hopefully they'll something will happen and they can make the project go, and they don't destroy the project or the concept. And so,
Well,
but yeah, go ahead.
The best part of this project is, like I said, the website is online. Anybody can get on that website and add their input. No one but people on my side, and when I mean my side, I mean the Kimley Horn, the design team side, has access to the website and see that input. So we're going to take everything that gets on that website, and everything's equal. Every comment is valued. We're going to be taking all of that material. Nothing's going to be taken off the table or brushed under the rug. And we're going to use it, and we're going to use it to inform us of how to move forward based on what the people are saying. So when we go to city council and talk to them, the first statement will be, this is what people of Portsmouth has told us, and it's not going to be any different.
But I'm referring to when the contracting piece comes out, when they got their hands out and they're doing
certainly when it comes to the money, that's always a challenge, no matter what it would be. So that's something that we're just going to have to see as time comes. You know, we're not at a point right now to be going to get that grant money or to be issuing out money to be doing any of these construction projects. So I think it goes to your point of making sure you're getting out to vote for the people that you believe in and you trust, so that when we do come to that point, you are the people who are managing those decisions, are people you have the trust in to make sure it's being done the way you hope for it to be done.
Yep.
Jeff, I want to say thank you so very much. And for the citizens of Portsmouth, now it's your time. You don't wait until after the project goes into effect to complain about what has taken place. They're giving you an opportunity to let your voice be heard. So get out there, go to Reimagine City Park, reimaginecitypark.com.
Reimaginecitypark.com.
You have until October 31st to make your wishes and dreams known. Go there. And for those of you who may not be online, there is another avenue. There are flyers which have been given out to the civic leagues. So go to your civic league, get the flyer, fill out the information, and just let your voice be heard. Don't talk about it after the fact. Let's deal with it before we even begin the first phase of the project.
What I'll do too on my end is that the flyer that has been given out to civic leagues around Portsmouth, we'll get that up on our website as well, and it'll be downloadable and savable for any person to have and print for themselves. So if you feel more comfortable printing something and writing it by hand and mailing it into the Parks and Rec department, you'll have that means to do that as well.
And Jeff, and if you could get that to Portsmouth Coffee Talk, we of course can get that out
Absolutely.
as well. So I think it's a great thing, and I'm just looking forward to the changes that will take place. I know it's going to be over a period of time, but just the idea that there will be possibly that good green space there, and a place where all citizens can have an opportunity to enjoy the park and make it a place. And there was one question that I had that I didn't get a chance to ask. Has it been looked into the fact of the number of people who participate in that golf range, those who are citizens of Portsmouth as opposed to those who come from outside of the city to use the golf range? Has that been looked into as well?
Yes, as part of the golf course study that we had conducted last year that studied the data between 2015 and 2020, it is estimated and stated in that report, it's estimated that of the number of users of the golf course, 65 to 70% of those users are Portsmouth residents.
Okay.
And then that's when when you can really start looking at some of these numbers very closely, because it's estimated that there's on average between 8,800 and 10,500 rounds of golf played between during that time frame. So if we take 10,500 rounds a year by 70% of Portsmouth residents, we're in the range of 7,000 rounds played by local people of Portsmouth. But that does not necessarily mean 7,000 individuals because multiple golfers may play multiple rounds a year. So if you play 2 or 3 rounds at that year, you start getting into the range of potentially only 3,000 to 4,000 people of Portsmouth play the golf course, and of a population of 93,000 people, and only 3,000 to 4,000 of those people who live in Portsmouth play the golf course. It's fairly low percentage of residents. Further, kind of making us question, should this golf course be here? Could that land be used for a larger percentage of people?
Right. But once again, Jeff, I want to thank you so very much for sharing this information and for your choosing to come on Portsmouth Coffee Talk to share that information.
The
Thank
thanks
you.
is all mine. Thank you for having me. This was a great conversation. I appreciate your questions. You had lots of good ones.
And the great thing about it, Jeff, is that it is on Facebook Live, which is on my page, and it will be on Portsmouth Coffee Talks page as well. And today, James will download it to YouTube. So people will be able to go on YouTube and also see the discussion that took place on this morning. So once again, I want to say thank you so very much, Jeff, and I wish you Godspeed. And I wish this project can get started so that we can really get the full usage of the Portsmouth City Park. So thank you so very much.
Thanks all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
And
James?
thank you, Jeff. I share the sentiments of my co-hosts. We appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. I'd like to say to the citizens, when you're sitting in those barbershops and talking sports like we started out this time, include things like this that are going on in the city, the city park things and your civic leagues and those garden clubs, and share this with other people that that, especially those ones that sit down and complain about everything. You have to sit there them and say, well, do you know about what's going on at the city park? And encourage them to check it out, because you mentioned 65% of the people from Portsmouth use that, and comes down to a small number anyway. But if you had those people involved, and I know, and I've seen over the years, just like y'all have those little sessions and 10 people show up, and it's the same 10 people. To all these different things, and it's not that encouraging to a group like yours to do all this work and then to plan to share the information and 10 people show up. And then, once it's voted on, everybody is complaining.
Yes.
What happened, but but
Well,
continue to.
Hopefully we get lots of people in this round. That's part of the why we had it on a website. So hopefully that's convenient and accessible for a lot of people. But But yeah, it's again, reimaginecitypark.com, October 31st. Please get your input in there by the date, and please share with as many people as you can who live in the city.
And thank you again. And hopefully throughout the years, as this project goes forward, we have you back for some updates. You know, how
That'd be
things are-
great. I'd be happy to come back and share updates as we keep going.
We certainly would want to know how the public is responding, you know, going forward. So
Thank
But
you so
anyway-
much again.
And
thank you.
for getting up so early on a holiday Monday.
Yeah. But he said the holiday doesn't mean anything to him.
He said doesn't mean anything to him at all right now. He's still
Just another
working.
Monday here to
Okay.
make the donuts. So
No, Coffee Talk is here for our voice.
thank you so much.
For our future.
In our community.
Did I do it wrong again?
Yes, yes. So I think, you know, I think
Yeah. Jeff, we've only been doing that for a year, and each
Yeah.
time it gets worse. We can't get it
Write it
right.
down, Leah. Write it down.
So thank you so very much,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Thank
You all have a great week. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
You do
those
the
who watching
same.
on Facebook Live. We appreciate you. We'll see you. And join us this Thursday as we have another round with the candidates. Will be Clue Atkinson, school board member who's running for city council, and
Claudia
the-
Patillo.
Patillo, yes, the chairman of the school board who's running for re-election. So join us Thursday at 7 o'clock, and each one will get a half an hour to share their presentation with you, their platform as well. Thank you again. Good night.
Thank you.
night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good morning, James. It's not night. Good morning. I know it's a holiday.
Yeah. Y'all
Thank you,
need to
Jeff.
write that
Thank you
down,
once
too.
again.
Thank you all.
Okay.
bye.